Welcome back here at Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about why women of color hate themselves so much from my experience. As you all know, I'm a white passing Care Bear, also some brother ancestry, so naturally I can examine the matzo ball from a variety of angles. And being, I think it's fair to say, a mid-tier normie in the West, nothing special, I have dated a wide variety of women, different races, cultures, religions, backgrounds, but I've noticed this pattern with ethnic chicks. And you could claim you're just attracting the self hating ones. Perhaps, or this is a more widespread phenomenon, or others are just not vocalizing it as much. You see, one talent or perhaps disadvantage I have is I set people at ease. This is why they are willing to tell me stuff that they might not impart to another person. And this is the reason I've always gotten along with a wide array of folks because they feel they can trust me. I'm not going to uh, pass a bunch of judgments on them. But we can begin with this saga. A couple months back, this girl was from the Middle East, but more on the white passing side. Pretty, however, one of those prone to assuming everyone's out to get her, especially if she's romantically involved, that you must be lying, you've got some evil ulterior motive. So that made it unlikely to progress very far. But I recall I was making out with her and I bumped her nose. And she was like, "Hey, that's sensitive." I went, "What do you mean?" Well, unbeknownst to me, even though her nose did look a little bit odd on her face, she had had, it's not called a rhinoplasty. What's the other term? A beak cell reduction procedure. And so rather than having more of the aquiline or the hook design, hers was like an English lady, 90-degree triangle, very pointy. It was aesthetically pleasing, but not necessary. Like I said, she was an attractive girl. This is similar. Another chick I knew, South Asian, again pretty, but she had the prominent nose and she was extremely insecure about it. She would try to always take pictures from a certain angle. She didn't like anyone calling attention to her schnoz. And she was also talking about having this surgery. And here I'm thinking, my God, have you seen my nose? It's over for Goldberg. This same girl, the South Asian one, even though she claimed she was above all that, you would see with her friend circle, she would automatically defer to any girl that was lighter tone, and that would become the leader. She was almost in awe of this female. And you're saying, why? There's nothing wrong with you. You're intelligent, you're hardworking, but you see how ingrained this stuff can be. Even when they don't grow up in a society where there's necessarily a lot of people that are Caucasian, they will still take this on board, whether it's through media or that's just their ideal for some reason. I'm not sure what to tell you, but it's unfortunate, and yet it's a nuance that you can't ignore in our world. Black women are an interesting case because it's overall more difficult for them to mask their appearance based upon having a distinct hair type or certain features. But what they will do is resort to skin lightening creams, filters, or having the sun hit their face at a particular angle in the shot such that they appear to be on the whiter side of the equation. This I view as somewhat sad. There are attractive darker complexion women out there and they should just own it instead of attempting to cope. Like recently I saw at a department store a gorgeous Somalian chick. And no, I don't live in Minnesota, so it isn't super prevalent. But she had pretty eyes, full lips, immaculate figure. I was like, I might have to run some clown game on that in the future. Speaking of Somalians, Ilan Omar, reasonably appealing. Now her daughter, mistake there. But you can see when she was lower status in America, she was stuck with a Somalian cell. In fact, I think she got with her brother, which is kind of brutal. But as her star rises, then it's I'm going to go with a white passing Care Bear dude because she knows that's going to enhance her position. Now, I'm not certain she's planning to have another kid, but if she could, I bet she would rewind and get with this guy in the first place. Asians are especially peculiar on this subject. So the paler they are, you may not hear it quite as much, although they will still pursue plastic surgery in record numbers. When you get to the golden tone or certainly the darker ones, big time. In fact, I've had a couple of girls say this nonchalantly, not even as though it's, oh, don't tell anyone this, but they've said, yeah, I'm just not attracted to my own kind. You're going, excuse me. So every guy out there who's Asian, you find repulsive. even Chang. I find that difficult to believe, but if you hold fast to it, there's some kind of psychological, neurological problem you have. Like that's not normal behavior. It's sort of attuned to the guys in the West who will say, "I've got a type." Dude, if you're a sub 8, you don't have a type. You have women that are interested and respond to you, if any. So, yeah, I know that you freaking stroking ego, but it is kind of fascinating. And I might talk about these people in particular later on because there's more to unpack. But by far, the most egregious offenders in this regard would be Latinas. I mean, no contest in my experience. So some years back, I was involved with this one, and she tells me that she used to go in the shower, take a pumice stone, and try to scrub the brown off her body. No joke. And this was, again, mundane, normal, not a big deal, no hushed tones. Last year, Mestiza, she is just staring at me. She goes, "Your eyes are so beautiful. I have to keep looking at them. My eyes are disgusting." And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? So I don't have distinctly blue or green eyes. They're greenish brown, if you will. And hers were just dark brown. But she had this whole complex that her eyes were hideous. And I'm going, what? The wannabe trad Latina, I brought it before. Her picture, she was golden tone or pale. She shows up. It's like, did you just apply for a job as a cinnamon dusted Krispy Kreme donut? Not to mention, she had angry eyebrows. And this is a real phenomenon. Now, let me discuss something that was very recent. So, I was on the app, matched with this chick, and she definitely had the Asiatic features, kind of like the girl that's on screen now, but she appeared to be pale. And we talked a bit. I said, "Hey, you want to go out before I have to head into work? We'll go to a cafe." She's like, "Sure." So I pull up, I stop, get out of the car, went over to open the door for her. First thing she says, this girl's like 5'1". She's like, "Oh my God, you're so tall." I'm 6'2". Now you look at her skin tone, and I'm not gonna say it was like swarthy dark, but it was substantially more brown than her pictures appeared. But she had this jet black long hair, so I was calling her Pocahontas, and she enjoyed that. And you go into the cafe, we're starting to get our pastries and coffee. At the same time, these two girls, probably mid 20s or late 20s, enter. So you have the daughter of the Baconator Asian girl, so lots of girth, much to love, and then this white chick who is probably Greek or Italian descent, but pale, dark hair, a bit of a schnoz, but it didn't do her any disservice. You know, she was pretty, and she probably 5'5", 5'6", beautiful fat ass, like just was rocking it big time. But I see her multiple occasions. She keeps looking at me. She keeps stealing glances. Even when they had sat down across the room, she continued doing this, and it was a mixture of coping and seething and jealousy. So you could go, well, it's just pre-selection. She's angry because you're with Pocahontas, and she's not. Even though some of these women, they'll get upset, not that they necessarily want you, but they're desirous of that whole status, like being with a guy, that kind of thing. The problem is that girls like that, even though they are more attractive overall, they're not going to be on the app. And if they are, they're not going to respond. They don't know how to make small talk or be socially agreeable. So this made me think of something because the Pocahontas girl, she's early 20s. She's the oldest of like 5 or 6 kids. So the youngest sibling is a toddler. And you might go, well, that's just because they're from a more conservative background. But I was reading Latin America is approaching a sub replacement birth rates across the board. And maybe little pockets or hamlets will push back against that. But still, it's kind of alarming because South America is, they don't have nearly as much empowerment of women or economic distribution to females as we do. But it makes you wonder, you have all these guys going to Southeast Asia, like tall white dudes or even brothers. And a lot of these women, these shorter indigenous women, Asian women, are trying to get with them. It's like they've got this kick up the pants that they have to try to level up, particularly if their countries are going down the drain, not as strong economically. They're like, well, yeah, I might as well get out of here. And you could compare it once more to that girl we saw in the cafe. You say, yeah, they're shorter. They might be a little stubby. They don't have, maybe on average, I've noticed with indigenous women and Asians, they don't have like a fat ass or ion cannons most of the time. There's some exceptions. But even though they might be a little bit inferior genetically, they are better adapted socially. They're like you can have a basic conversation with them. They'll be giggling and laughing. They'll make it fun to be in their presence. Whereas these other Western women, it's a hassle. They're always extremely icy, and they think they're above silly humor or whatever it might be. So could we have almost a reverse black pill? Western women are rejecting regular dudes because they're not good looking enough, don't have resources, status. And now these women that are traditionally on the bottom are trying to level up. But it's this paradox where if they do and they have kids, they're going to win the battle of the womb. They're going to be the inheritors of all this MGTOW money or manosphere money of guys that don't want to settle down with Western women. I mean, it's a very interesting potential for playing out. And I'm not making an immoral endorsement because I do see some dysgenic trends coming out of it. You're going to have these 5'2" Asian or Latino boys running around trying to make money selling dragon fruit so they can save up for Hamza's Adonis course. Nevertheless, whether you like it or not, it may occur. You know, there was a dude in my comments section a couple months ago having a mental breakdown, white dude, because he felt that he had to marry a short Filipina. There was no other alternative. So if that progresses, you might see a dying off of these Western females who are euthanizing themselves, or they are concerned about kids dying in Gaza, but abortion is the most important issue back home. Yeah, if they have money, they could do surrogacy, but surrogacy is expensive, so you perhaps would get one child out of that bargain, but you're unlikely to be able to keep up. And so these short, stubby, indigenous Latinas or Southeast Asians will be the inheritors of the new world. It's a bizarre paradox where those that are genetically inferior could actually be at the top of the pile. And this is something H.P. Lovecraft had talked about. Now, he's probably a little too extreme, but he said his theory was the Aryans in India, they were dumbed down because they started mixing with like Dravidian tribes, maybe in some Aboriginal Sentinelese. I haven't studied enough of the ethnography there. But could it have been a similar dynamic? The Aryan women, they were empowered and difficult to deal with. So the Aryan men started saying, okay, we'll smash these darker complexion pujas, and it all began to unravel. The funny part about it is, and you could maybe exclude brothers from this discussion, but a lot of these white dudes that are tradcons, right wing, they keep talking about the Care Bears, but they are the tip of the spear advancing what they claim is a Care Bear agenda of the combination of peoples and globalism and internationalism. They just use the overlay of Christian nationalism. That's their excuse. They don't want Klaus Schwab, but maybe if it was based Kirill the Patriarch leading the global community of Christians, it wouldn't matter. And so you do see that. My contention is that Christian nationalism is simply a vehicle, by and large, to get Westerners more accepting of this brave new world, of the high rates of migration, and say, well, but most of them are Christians, so it doesn't really matter. You know, let me know what you think. This is all speculative, but I just think it's kind of funny how women that, in one sense, have better genetics and are more desirable are being displaced by ones that in the past would have been seen as inferior, but simply because they're more agreeable, easy to get along with, they're kind of rising in status.